Welcome, everyone. Okay, let's start. My name is Nuria Bayo. I'm head of the academic programs here at BIS. That means that I'm working together with all the 7 centers to promote career development and professional support to all researchers and the whole BIS community. So welcome everyone to the debate around the film Picture as Scientist. Indeed, Picture as Scientist initiative started from exploring reports in late 90s that exposed significant gender inequity across the sciences. And the team dug into the data and spoke with dozens of scientists, and they realized that the vast extent of the challenge facing women and minority scientists. And despite huge efforts done by the courageous scientists, and only a small portion has been shown at the film, in fact, systemic gender bias and racism persist nowadays. And we can see in the film and we can see around us. So I imagine that most of you have already watched the film. Each of you have connected with the stories in a personal way, I imagine. And maybe you are a young researcher and you have been touched by new view of science. Or maybe you are a female senior researcher and you have consolidated the vast extension of your personal experience. Or maybe you are a male researcher and have access to stories, data that were not evident really from your experience. So all of us are taking part of this community, so we are responsible to improve our work environment and show to society that there is a way to work in equity and diversity, and a way to bring science further, to solve actual social challenges, and to build up a better world for everyone. And I want to thank members of the BIS working groups of communication and people, that they are the responsible to impulse this initiative. And especially, I want to thank the fantastic panel that we have for this session. So the panel represents different actors in our research system. They will explain you their impression from the film and highlight actions to take. And especially they will show up how important is being part of a strong community and having the contribution of this myriad of active voices to improve our work environment. After the intervention of the panel, we'll have time for discussion. So please share via chat your questions and comments, and we will put them on the table at the proper time. So I will list the members of the panel in order of their intervention. So first we'll have Electra Neri. She's postdoctoral researcher at ICFO. Say hello, Electra.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for the introduction.
Then we have Anke Cliff. She's a staff at the Human Resources Department at IBEC.
Hello, everybody.
Then we have Neus Domingo. She's the platform leader at ICN2 and a distinguished researcher at CSIC.
Hello.
Hello, Neus. We have also Federico Dachila. He's postdoctoral researcher at ICAQ.
Hello everyone.
And at the end, we have Maria Macias. She's group leader and ICREA research professor at IRB Barcelona. Thanks again for your active discussion in preparing the panel, and also for sharing your expertise and your view today, and for contributing from your position in having a stronger community, this community that it's even more equity and diverse. Please, Electra, you have now the voice.
Okay, so welcome everybody again. Many thanks for the introduction, and many thanks also for the opportunity to share my personal opinions about what we saw in this documentary, and to have the opportunity to talk about these topics, which are, I think, very important. So as I was presented, my name is Electra. I am 31 years old. I am an experimental physicist. So I work as a postdoc since 1.5 years, something like that, in the quantum gases experiment at ICFO with Professor Letizia Teruel. And yeah, so my very first, what I would say is the first thing about what we saw in this documentary is that I must admit I was not surprised about what I saw there. So the content of the documentary, what we were showed, was not surprising me, but still, because I've seen during my career, let's say, parallel things, so comparable things happening, not necessarily to me, but to people close by. But still, I was extremely touched by it, emotionally touched by it, and it took really quite some time for me to digest it. I really had to take a bit of time to digest it. And then I asked myself, why? What was coming new with this documentary that I was not thinking about before? And I realized that it's about the vocabulary that it's using. In the sense, I realized that it puts together a certain number of definitions, black and white, of concepts that were kind of fishy to me before. And I never had a vocabulary that was shareable with other people to speak clearly about these topics that sometimes might be very, fishy to address. And it was putting their numbers together. So somehow it was complete, building up a vocabulary to speak about these things. And in particular, to me, the concept that was most important, but really this is a personal thing, was the concept of the iceberg. You saw in this documentary, they find the iceberg of all those actions that are discriminating, that we might experience during our daily life at work. And we have this little tip of actions which are clearly discriminating, and are evident and very objective somehow, very easy to define. We don't have to underestimate them, because as we saw in the documentary, it might even be that they are there and nobody does anything against that, but still there, we can at least clearly name them. But then there is this huge, massive volume of all those small behaviors, aggressive or discriminating behaviors that are subtle and difficult to define. In this case, against women, because there's been about the bias against women, but of course we can speak about bias against many other categories of people. And that was very important to me, because I think it was something that I was personally experiencing during my life as a scientist, and it costed me tons of energies and time. We also saw this topic of the energy that these things cost to people working, right, on the working place. And yeah, but maybe if I keep on talking about these things, it might still seem that I'm speaking about nothing if I don't give something a bit more, if I'm not a bit more specific. So maybe it's good if I just bring up an example, that I think it's understandable for all of us, no matter the gender, because we know that STEM can be a stressful environment. I mean, we have for sure pressure, we have competition, we have deadlines. This is something we have to go along with, and then it's unavoidable. And then all of us, I think, we have experienced it sometimes in our life, an aggressive or an unfair behavior of someone else against us. It has happened to everybody, I think, statistically, that at a meeting, we propose something, and then there is a colleague that, I don't know, maybe wants to show off a bit or something, we're proposing something, just shut up us in a well, I would say in an unpolite way. Saying this is stupid, or this is never going to work, or something like that. And maybe he or she is even right, but there is another way, to answer to people. We can be nice. We can discuss about things in a nice way. And this, I think, happened to everybody statistically. But what this movie, this documentary showing us, that due to a bias that all of us have, again, statistically, it might happen more often for some category of workers. In this case, we're speaking about women. So more often means that, those 5 minutes that after that after that aggressive reaction of your colleague, that 5 minutes that you spend in discomfort, in anger, in sadness, feeling a bit, cut out of the conversation, that you lose the focus of the conversation, you even sometimes you are distracted from the topic that we were discussing about in the meeting. That 5 minutes, you have to multiply it for a certain number, which is statistically in a day, which is statistically higher for women. And then you have to multiply this number. Let's make 5 minutes times 5, something like that. This is nearly half an hour of your time in a day. And then multiply this half an hour for 5 days in a week, and then for 4.5 weeks an average in a month, and then for 12 months in a year. And then there's this tons of time, right, that you just spend feeling, just to try to reset down your feeling in that moment and go back to your meeting and try to focus back on what we were talking about. And now I was just doing an example about a working topic, but there is, all those categories of comments that a woman can receive more often than when a man that probably are about aesthetic or how they're dressed or family, things like that, which, I mean, at least to my experience, have been very often, mostly even in the past when I was kind of a student or younger. And all what I want to say is that bias, we all have it. I mean, it's something that comes with our culture, and we're not superheroes. And of course, we have it against someone. I for sure have a bias against probably women themselves. But it would take a little bit of effort for each one of us to try to accept it, and accepting it, also improving it. A little bit of effort, so a little bit of energy every day that might save tons of energies to our collaborators, really tons of energies all along 1 year. So yeah, that I would say was, to me, the most important topic to speak about. But that's, of course, again, very personal, and that
Thank you,
Thanks.
Thank you, Letra. Anke?
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I think this is really an extremely relevant conversation that we're going to have today. I see 66 participants, so that is already great news. So I think there is a huge need now to talk about the movie and the issues that are addressed. I just wanted to start saying that I resonate with many things that Elektra just told us. For example, that it's not easy to watch the movie. You said it's difficult to digest. It's actually very difficult to digest. I watched it twice, and I think it's not easy. And there are some truths that really hit you very hard. So I am a member of IBEC's HR team. I'm a psychologist, and I am very active in IBEC's Gender and Diversity Commission. And so I'm going to talk a bit about what happened at IBEC when we screened the movie. We have a bit of longer experience because we decided already last year that we wanted to screen this movie. Last year, at IBEC, we were very active because we were doing our third gender and diversity plan. So we had a lot of conversations going on, and we have this new gender and diversity commission that is very active. And then in several circles, like this movie came up, people started to talk about it, group leaders that talked to other group leaders internationally, and it came up. And then we decided at one point of time, okay, we want to share it with the community. And we organized the screening, but we didn't organize a conversation. So it's very good that we have this conversation today. And what happened was that really people started to contact us, and we got a lot of feedback, and people got really emotional about what this movie was about. And because normally when you work in gender and diversity, there are people that always look for a conversation with you, but there are others that don't get too much involved. And after showing the movie, really people came to us that normally don't get in touch with the Gender and Diversity Commission. So we really thought, oh, this is really hit an important issue, no, this movie. And I think the movie has several lectures and several messages. One message that was very important for us, obviously, is the issue of harassment. And Eletra already said it. It's kind of an iceberg issue. No, the problem is that harassment in the workplace, in research, is not something that is very clear. No, and it's shown super clear in the movie, because this lady that suffers harassment on the expedition, she explained that it took her 17 years to do something, and that she needed a long time not to figure out that really something went very wrong, and that she has rights, and that she has to do something. And also she explains that she never felt that it was the right moment, because she also was afraid that she would suffer consequences. And I think all of that really reflects what happens when people in their workplace, especially young researchers, when something happens to them, something goes wrong, I think normally they are not prepared for that situation, and they need some guidance also from the organizations, because I think in many situations they don't know how to identify what is happening to them. So it's in many cases it's because it's very subtle and it's not clear. Am I having a conflict with somebody, which is between people that more or less have the same level of power now? Is this a conflict? Is this an issue of, let's say, research integrity? Or is this really a situation of harassment? And for us at IBEC, we wanted to address that issue, that normally in harassment situations, it's not obviously clear to you. So you may be confused, you may not know what your rights are, and also it may take some time until you want to take action. And what we've been doing, we've been starting this conversation, and we've been trying to address this issue, that really harassment is not a black or white situation. And so at IBEC, we have, for example, a conflict solution protocol that is for a conflict. And also we have a commission that addresses issues in research integrity, which is another issue. And obviously, we also have a commission that addresses harassment issues. And it is very clearly stated what is not acceptable. For example, certain kinds of jokes or certain kinds of ways of looking at people. So all of that is clearly defined, but we found out we need a step beforehand. We need to help people that are confused about the situation, and we need to guide them. And one of the things that we are doing right now, and we will develop, is we will just prepare an information leaflet. The working title right now is Speak Up. So this is just a leaflet. When something goes wrong and you don't know what it is about, what will be the offer from the Institute, and who can guide you, who can help you to identify what is happening to you, and also how will you be protected during the phase of intervention, and you will be safe, and what are the steps. We share the offer that comes from the Institute when people join us, so in their welcome meeting. But as you can imagine, well, if that's explained to you in your first week, it may get lost on the way, and if something happens to you 2 years later, well, so we will also take care of the dissemination, and that people know that this is available. And I think really to really open a conversation about also that these situations are unclear in many cases is something that we from the institution can do to help our researchers, especially the young researchers that are more vulnerable to harassment situations. I think there are more messages in the movie, more optimistic messages that are about solidarity, but I think the other speakers will address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anke. Neus?
That's really a very interesting approach. And certainly this part of the hidden iceberg that you realize, probably, at least to me, this is what shocked me the most after watching the film. So I have to admit that first thing that I thought when they started presenting the cases of their personal experiences is, oh my God, this was not 50 years ago. This was just 25 years ago maximum. And this is right the time that I was joining the university to do a PhD, to do a degree in physics, right? So my perception of how the STEAMs were at that time was completely different when these things were indeed happening, right? So I do believe that this visualization and also this sensitization, I mean, we need to learn, we need to be trained also what is harassment and what is not. That was pointing Anke. It's one essential point here. I was kind of thinking about how couldn't I perceive it like that, so that these cases could have been happening. And I realized that probably there is also a cultural impact or difference in cultural environments where these events happen, and also probably one may think that the cases are presented in a very harshnering way, right? So they are really shocking. But this might also be related because of the positions these people were hiding. So probably I was not seeing it or was not aware of it, because really the cases are in very top institutions where there is a high level of demanding of performance there. So I guess that this scales up also with this factor. I would like to talk today about one of the facts that is pointed in the film, that is the data mining. I was really amazed by the approach of one of the main protagonists, that was Nancy in this case, that when she realized about what was the situation, because suddenly she needed some space lab. I'm not doing a spoiler, hopefully, to the audience. Then she needed more space lab, and she realized that all her male colleagues, they had more space than her in the labs, and she was not delivered this space. So she started going into the building at night times and taking one of these metric systems just to make plans of the building and counting how many meters were used by each of her colleagues, right? So she started a strong effort in creating this data in a very scientific approach, which regarding, since we are talking about scientists, as a scientist, we always have this kind of scientific approach to get data to demonstrate things, no? So she coped with all this information, and once she demonstrated it with numbers and facts, she was happy because she thought that was it. So she was, if when at the time that she was showing the numbers, they would realize that she was right, so they would just change it. And then that's funny, because then she realized that nothing happened. Even she was demonstrating a fact with evidences, right? As a scientist that she is. And then another dimension came up in the fact, right? Because then the answer of the provost at that time was, well, yeah, that's true, but we're not going to change that because this is because of the cultural environment, right? And then here is where the social sciences come into the help. But in any case, data mining, just this effort of picking up the data, I think it's crucial. And it's crucial to fight this invisibility, right? When we get data that is significant, this data serves as evidence, it serves to demonstrate things, but it also serves to sensibilize, and eventually it has to serve to convince, right? If we get data in a nice way, and this is objective data and it's scientifically proven, this data may have all those dimensions, but the main reason why we need to also to get data, relevant data regarding gender bias, especially in the STEAMs, it's to make diagnosis. Without this data, it's hard to define which is the hardcore problem, maybe. And this data can have different dimensions, right? So this can be quantifiable data. And here, for example, I want to do a call for all research centers. We're trying to do it in our research center to centralize the database, and including, for example, very simple topic, but it's relevant for most of the institutes here, that is publications, right? So there are plenty of databases to download all the references and citations of your articles, but this is not labeled with gender. And it's very relevant because it makes a lot of difference to see if the first author is a male or a female, right? So just to incorporate this labeling into the scientific productivity, into the information of the production in the scientific field. And this also leads, for example, relates with getting projects, publishing papers, attending conferences, just having all these databases in the institutes with information labeled by gender, it's incredibly relevant because this is straightforward quantifiable, right? So we can see how is the real picture going on in our centers, and we can diagnose which is the problem or which is the weak points that we have, and how can we fight to address them, right? But there is also another dimension that is the non-quantifiable data. And here is, I refer back to what Anke was mentioning, that is, for example, is harassment. So how to even realize if harassment is there, right? So there is a huge dimension of data, which is it's probably more qualitative. It depends also on the personal experiences, and here, the leveling or the ranging can be huge because it's also cultural dependent. It also depends on the different environments, and then it makes the effort here for quantification and visualization a little bit more difficult. But then here I do another call, and I do a call to social sciences. And you may know that there is a bunch of research groups composed by psychologists and sociologists, that they are trying to deal on how gender bias is affecting, for example, research groups, how is affecting research. There is, for example, we are collaborating with a group at the University of Catalunya who are do specific studies on gender in ticks, right? So they have the knowledge. They are the scientists of these non-quantifiable things, such as social behavior, of human behavior, that really can open this door that we need also in order to understand what's going on, and in order to fight it finally, right? So this is the last call, let's say. Go for databases with labeling, for quantifiable information. For non-quantifiable information, please get the help of a specialist, and these are sociologists, right? And at the end of the documentary, there is also the sociologist that it's coming to help, right? So this is the exact picture of what I'm calling. I would like to end with a comment on the comment on Nancy at the end of the documentary, that I think it's exemplary of what many people or many women feel. That is like, oh my God, what a loss of energy sometimes, right? So the fact that we need to point this, to fight with this, to spend this time, looking for data, trying to remark every single time that be careful, there might be a gender bias. This at some point, it's really desperating, and we might feel that we are losing our time, losing our energies, but it's where we are, right? We have to do it, and if we look back, I do think that we have to be proud to be living this time, because even the changes are slow, and they have been like even going more slowly recently. So there was a huge change, and now it seems we are getting into a plateau. That's the time that we have to fight to change the model, right? So it's our must. It's where we are. We have to do it, even it's a loss of energy, but hopefully this will have a return in the future.
Thank you, Neus. Federico?
Yeah. So, well, hello everyone, and just to start, I'm really glad to be here today, and I would like to thank the BIS community, and also in Spain specific, let's say, the ICQ Gender Equality Committee that accepted to have a male voice at this debate. And I'm here to talk about the role of male in this process, because we do see in the movie, and in general, we know very well that there is a problem. We need to solve it all together. And since we are here debating on the movie, I will just talk about the three group of male that I think they are, and that they are really clearly shown in the movie. So there is the type of man that is the harassers. In that case, in the movie was David Marchand, in the case of Jane. And that is clearly the person that is wrong. That is clearly the person that we need to address, that we need to focus with. And then there is another minority that is instead the case of, I believe, the rector of the University of Boston, that was the one at the end that, let's say, managed to kind of say, look, even if the department decided that David Marchand can stay after 3 years, no, he needs to go because it is too much. Or also in the case of MIT and Nancy, the fact that when all the data were there, again, like the rector decided, yes, it's true, we need to change that. The problem is that these two are two minorities. The problem that I see is that in the case of male, and we see also today, because the percentage of male participating at this debate is very low, is that the majority is a Adam type in the case of Jane. So it's a man that is close to the harasser. He sees things that are happening, but he doesn't realize that, or he doesn't want to realize that. And I think that this, in the case of as men and also as women, we should address this majority. We should go and convince these people that there are problems and that we need to solve all together. Because if we don't convince the majority of men that there are some behaviors that are not acceptable at all, and there are bias that are clearly there, we will never solve the issue. And I think that the role of male researcher and in general of male in this change is crucial. The first things we need to do is what we do today, is active listening. That is the first things. So before, since the problem is not completely ours, or let's say we are the ones that are also creating the problem, we should listen to what the problems are, but also and as well be either the active one that decide to tackle the problem or convince the big majority that doesn't change anything that they need to change mentality. And to finish my brief comment, because I don't want to extend too much, I would say that like, I think that is really important also for us as men to fight that, because this is not a problem just of female or male. It's a problem of people who have power and people who don't have power. So the problem is that in this society, we were used to have women without power, and so the harassers were men. But that also happened with people that don't have power. So let's say, in my personal experience, I was lucky enough that, well, lucky or unlucky, depending on the point, that I always had problems with male supervisors, whilst I always was lucky and had a beautiful relationship with female supervisors. And I answered that to myself because due to my family, let's say, education, I got used to a kind of education based on respect and based on fact more than based on power and authority. So my parents were convincing me that something was wrong or good. They were not telling me, look, I order you to do that. And for me, that should be the basis of science. I mean, every kind of discussion between a group leader or a student or between a man and a woman should be based on respect, integration, and never or power or authority or bias or I know more than you, so I'm not listening to you. And just to finish, just to show you that like that happened to everyone, I was myself sometimes an Adam type of man. I realized that sometimes I didn't listen to women in the same way I was listening to men speaking. And again, like this diversity problem is general. I am myself a physicist as well as Elettra and Neus. And I had problem at the beginning of my career because I wanted to do some chemistry. And they told me, look, no, you are a physicist. No, you are diverse. You shouldn't do chemistry. That is not for you. And now I managed to get a PhD in chemistry. So for me, it's very important to say that diversity is like in science, we need to be diverse and have a diverse environment because otherwise we are all losing, male and female. And I'm here finishing. Thanks again.
Thank you, Federica. Now, Maria, you are the last one. I encourage the audience to also to write comments and questions via chat, and then we'll discuss it after Maria's speech. Go ahead, Maria,
Yes.
please.
Well, thanks for this opportunity. Not only the opportunity of be here talking, but the opportunity to watch this film, because as we all said, these are things we know, but when you watch them, it comes to you in a different way, and the feelings afterwards. I couldn't watch it at once. I had to stop the film half and decided to have a break and lunch actually and came back in the middle of the afternoon and finished because it was really frustrating and sad. And just imagine these few women telling us these things, and you imagine how many others are going through the same things. So I would like just to, I don't know, stress the point that we need to team up. And it's not only to demonstrate things, because it's good to go with figures written in a piece of paper, but everybody knows if my lab is smaller than the other, if I get half of the running budget. We all know this. So we don't need to kill ourselves going through all these small things. Perhaps what we need is to look for how we do really change. How can we address? How can we reach the right people and discuss that these things are happening and these things are stopping our institutions and our governments and our countries for doing good research, a much better research, because it's not just that we have more or less women in a given institution. It's just that the ones that are there are busy with all this side business that are so important for us that you cannot stop yourself from helping another one. But at the end, you lose part of your working time or of your private life. And it's invested in this exhausting war that we have that we shouldn't be dealing with. Because as we say, we see these things are obvious. This is not complicated physics. So this is not an MR. This is something that every single mother cannot, every kid. The other day I got an interview and there were children from the school, 8 years old, and they were already asking me about these issues. So it's so obvious that we don't need to write thesis about this. What we need is really to team up. And it's not just a question of only women. We team up with this new generation of men that they have a different personality. Because I think the problem we have here is really a problem of personalities and how we think, the way we assume that a very strong character is going to bring success to our institution. And doesn't matter how, because the institution is more concerned about getting grants, finance, or getting groups producing a lot of papers. But at the end, I mean, if you're close to death, you really think that the last thing you are thinking about is how many papers you publish, or how many grants you got granted, or if you got the largest grant of your institution. No, you just think about it, how you enjoyed your life. And it's so nice to come to a lab where the environment is peaceful, that the students trust each other, that they don't feel stressed, that if today they don't arrive at 9, you are not going to tell them, look, why so late? These kind of things change the quality of the research we do. Because at the end, what we are talking here about, are we talking about science? Or are we talking about other kind of businesses? Because if we are talking about science, I think we should support people that do good science. And for this reason, we cannot let this kind of strange organization win. We really need to team up and change the situation for the good. And team up with all the Federicos that I'm sure they are around, and I notice that this doesn't make any sense at all. Why do we need to have these differences if what we want to have is excellence? If we really want to produce advances in science that the society benefits after this, we cannot be all of us waiting our lives and distributing the lab space evenly because just you have your own preferences, or because you think, well, I cannot give to her the same space to the other one because this guy is going to be offended. But why? Why is he going to be offended just because the lab space is the same? It's all nonsense. So we really need to do the effort and combine the ideas we have all together and just try to improve it. We don't need to understand it. I think we all understand these problems. We just need to move forward. But this is my view, of course. But I think we just need, now is the right time to start changing things. And I don't want to finish my career looking at the young females going through the same things. No, we cannot allow this to happen.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks all of you for your optimistic and lot of energy, that all of you consider that now it's the right time.
It's the right time.
Okay, so let's see what the audience say. So here we have 2 questions. Indeed, they are targeting the same issue that was pointed by Federico. So the idea is how we provoke, and the verb is provoke, interest in the third silence group of men.
Am I supposed to give a hint if there is?
You and the rest of the community.
I mean, as a man, I can tell you how I would be, let's say, I would be challenged. So like the best would be to go by one. So it's always easier for me as a man to listen to a woman if we are alone rather than if I am with 10,000 men and just a single girl, because there is peer pressure. So in my idea, let's say every time I learn something is because I was alone with a good friend of mine, or with my girlfriend, or with my sister, or with my mother, and it was a one in my case, as a man. That is the approach as a man. And the second thing that I would suggest, again, as a man that needs to be, is that you need also to realize that some of us is still biased, and it's not easy for us to overcome them. So for instance, I will make a clear example. At ICQ, we did 2 years a global women breakfast event. The first year, like maybe 2 men attended. Why? Because we pointed out very big women. So a lot of men were like, look, oh no, that is for women, I shouldn't go. And we didn't write, oh, just for women. But people saw women, so they were like, no, that is not for me. The second year, we put women much, let's say, tiny at the end of the slide. We put big, like, how to increase diversity in science. What the first panelist was a black man, many more men arrived because they were not, I mean, all this third majority was not, let's say, attacked or like hurt, but they were like, oh, that is also for me. And here are my suggestions. I'm eager to listen to the others.
Thank you, Federico. Some suggestions from the panel?
Well, I have to admit that it is hard. It is hard to work on that, and my personal experience, and probably it's also, you know, sometimes you don't want to jump into all your male colleagues with this topic because you don't want to be labeled like putting pressure on gender bias issues, or uh, you know, being labeled as the one that always complains, right? So and that makes it difficult sometimes to make this approach to convince your male colleagues to just to think about uh, things, right? Just to share different perspectives, just to inform them about what we are doing and why. And here, where I had more personal success, let's say, it's following precisely what Federico said. And it's just starting by your closer friends, so colleagues, which with you have a high level of confidence. They are the main ones you need to involve, because this is the people with who you will be able to debate, you will be able to chat, you will be able to even comment on specific cases and situations, like, and they will come back to you, and you realize that at some point they come back to you and say, look, I've found myself in this situation. What's your opinion? Do you think I'm biased? Because I'm trying to compensate my unknown bias, and I'm not sure that I am succeeding on that. So what's your opinion on this? And just take advantage of this level of confidence with the relationship with the colleagues that you have, let's say, more close to you, just to open this, just to make them, give them the freedom to discuss about it with you, and also learn from them, because they also have their perspective. So if you don't chat about it individually, you will probably not be able to convince them in general, right? So it's a small work of day by day and case by case that can help, just to get these people involved, or at least to get these people, let's say, sensibilized about the at least the bias, right? Or what issues can come up. And then these are the first people we need to involve, and hopefully then we can get through these people, get more men involved by the relationship between them, right? But I think that the main target that you have to look for is these close colleagues, which with you have the freedom to discuss about opinions and ideas in a more free way, I would say, more confident way.
Thank you, Ners. You wanted to add something, Anke?
Yes, I wanted to add 2 points. I think also from the institutional level, it's a good idea to find issues that are more general. For example, at IBEC, when we talk only about gender, it's difficult to get the men on board. But when we talk about work-life balance, which has a lot to do with gender equality, then we have the men coming in. So it helps. You have to find issues and address issues that they feel that are relevant to them. Sometimes you think, wow, we should talk about a lot of more things, but you keep that for you, and then you open that. You have to find the door openers for conversation, for example. And one issue could be the return from paternal leave. Now the men get more paternal leave, and that is an issue that is relevant, where you can do a lot directly for the people, and men will come on board and join this conversation. And I think the COVID helps us, because there was a kind of a door opener, because we have to talk about these issues more. And the second thing I wanted to talk about is, again, data. As Neos, you already mentioned it. I think if you have the data, when we did the assessment for our gender and diversity plan, we found out there was a huge difference in the perception of how resources like PI roles, for example, were relocated between people, between men and women at our institute. And we published it. So we said, okay, 50% of the women see that there's a huge difference, and only 20% of the men perceive it in the same way. So we shared that information. I think whenever you have data, you have to share it.
Thank you, Anke. Here we have another question from Martina Gazui. She's asking, well, how we can address the unconscious bias in general. Electra, you want to comment on that, on the bottom of the iceberg?
I mean, I see it's pretty much related on what really, touched me about what we were seeing in this in the movie. Yeah, but I don't have a good answer, in the sense that first of all, it's a thing that we all have biases, right? And then all of us, we're not speaking only about men having biases. So it's a good question to ask to everybody. And I would say that, to me, when I think about me thinking if I have a bias, if I am behaving well towards other people, I would say I think I just try to pay attention to, when I feel not, when I feel addressed wrongly, then I try to remember, so why was I feeling like that, and trying to understand why, and so in this way I can maybe understand better if I might do the same towards other people. So I think it's something that we have really to train. We have to listen really. So it's something difficult to do, but we have to know ourselves very well to be very elastic, to put ourselves in a position, to put ourselves in the shoes of other people. It's something that, and being elastic, so to change perspective, if you want, is something that you learn only if you listen a lot to what's going on inside yourself. At least this is what I think. I'd say very personally. Yeah, and about the topic specifically about the bias against women, what we have, how we reduce it. Well, one thing I think would be one very maybe straightforward advice that I would say I might have is what was also said in the movie. We should stop reacting when we are addressed with a comment which is inappropriate. We should stop reacting in a way like, minimizing what was going on, like saying ha ha, we're very funny, and then cutting the conversation just to make short the time that you waste on that comment, right? Because this I was doing a lot when I was younger, but then I learned that without reacting in an aggressive way, one person has always the right to say, sorry, I don't like your comment, or that was inappropriate. Please just don't repeat it, or, just don't do it anymore. I mean, saying things clearly and explicitly, and not being too much, not fearing too much to say things loud, might be something that helps more than we think. Also to other people, I mean, to you know, as an example also. And of course, this also works when we see something wrong done towards other people. I mean, we can do this. I mean, I don't believe we didn't find ourselves in a situation in which we could point out to someone next to us, look, you're not behaving very nicely with this person. I think all of us has found ourselves in this situation, right? So just doing it, of course, we have to learn how to do it, not in an aggressive way, or otherwise we get the opposite. No, we have a polarization, an over-polarization of the conversation, I would say. Yeah, this I would say is a straightforward thing. I mean, the most important thing to start doing right now. But then, of course, it's difficult. Then I go back to the first answer that I would have. It's difficult to learn about others and to learn about ourselves also. It's
Okay,
difficult.
thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Electra. I think Maria has also a comment, and then also.
Yeah, one of the possibilities to fight against this unconscious bias is to giving us some time before we answer or we take decisions. Because in the exercise they were doing in the film, because it was too quick, people were asked to assign words to either men or women. And because the answer was really fast, then it was obvious, the bias. So it was exposed that the unconscious bias is there and is there in all of us. So why don't we learn to refrain ourselves, and instead of saying immediately, this candidate is not going to work, just stop, take time, write your answer tomorrow, put the facts, really the figures together, and then say, well, perhaps I'm thinking because he's whatever. But if you look at the CV tells me something else. So I'm just considering other factors that are irrelevant. This is bias. And good that I gave me the time to put this together or to compare the different candidates, not to write a report after you interview one of the candidates. You write down because you have so many after that one, you don't want to miss things up. But perhaps just by doing this with more time, we would be able to distinguish why some of the comments we write might be driven by this bias. And the other thing is team up with other members, discuss why you got this impression. Because perhaps for some reasons you don't see it, but your colleague, you tell you, but perhaps this comment doesn't make any sense. It's just biased by our perception of whatever is not well dressed or doesn't look whatever. There are so many factors. So I think these two reasons might help.
Thank you, Maria. And here we have also a comment about why the directors of the centers are not present here. So I think it's related now, so about the support from the point of view of the institution. So I don't know if you want to do a comment on that. Well, Federico wants to, and Neus.
Yeah,
and then we will finish the debate.
So
yeah, Federico.
No, please start, Neus. I can.
So Neus, then.
Yeah, and as a member of the ICN2, I'm also the chair of the Equal Opportunities Committee. So I really would like to have the tool to involve our group leaders and directors to many of the discussions. If somebody has this key, please share it with me, because I would really love that. So that's one of the things that probably it's not perceived as relevant as having an impact. And we have to admit that. So when we try to organize things that are gender leveled, then they automatically decrease several steps in the level of importance. And we know that the schedules are tight, right? So when it is a matter of prioritizing, probably the feeling that it is not urgent. I wouldn't say important, I would say urgent, because agendas are mainly driven by urgency nowadays. that makes a difference, right? And this is, I think that this is a general, let's say, a general rule, not only for gender related things, but for many other topics in directors' agendas. So
Yeah, like my comment on that was that, let's say, as we say, this, I mean, is an ongoing problem, and is due to the fact, as we say, that power so far was related to men. And so we have a lot of, I would say, it's not just about that. Usually these men, I saw just a comment now that say 38 over 39 are men. Usually, apart from being men, they are also old men that kind of cut, let's say, the part of the young men. So it's already another generation. Just to give a positive perspective, for instance, at ICQ, like we had previously the scientific director was a man, and the managing director was a man as well. Then next, the new director we had now, like the scientific director is still a man. The managing director is now a woman. So now we had like the charges of our institute that before was 1-1. Now, 2-0, now is 1-1. So I think the way is to pay all attention about that. And we as researchers, as people working in the institute, we should all like give importance to that. Like we shouldn't be just like, oh yeah, well, I don't mind 2 men, 1-1. It's like, no, we like that should be the way. And we need to push the head of our institution to do that, because I did realize that whenever like the majority of the students of the researcher are pushing from like the bottom, then also like the upper sphere need to move. The problem is that if there is no push, yeah, the upper sphere will just stay there. So I believe like the way is like to team up, as Maria was saying before, and to be really like strict on something. Like if we believe that something is not correct, we should be like powerful enough to say like, no, like you should take care of that. And I'm done.
We need to choose the battles we fight. We cannot fight every single thing. So just focus on the important ones and we go for them. And this is the way to change things, I think.
Thank you. Also have here Alejandro, that he's pointing out that 38 out of the 39 CERCA center directors are men. So that maybe have something to do with the low attendance rate. Thank you, Alejandro, for this data. And maybe now that it's 2 minutes to the end of the debate, all of the panelists, maybe you want to add a last message for the audience before we end up this discussion. So we can start by the same order that we did before. So Electra, you want to give the last message to the audience?
It's difficult to pick one, but I would say maybe I would just repeat. Let's just try to listen to other people with which we work, and to be, yeah, as also Maria said, to give us also some time before just giving an opinion about other people. Yeah, taking a bit time before just reacting. That's it, I would say. Thanks.
Thanks, Electra. Anke?
And I would also add that from the institutions, we have to listen to the young people, because there's so much change happening on the streets, and I'm very optimistic, and sometimes change is happening and in the institution we take longer to realize, and I think it's super important to listen to the young researchers and have them on board.
Thank you, Anke. Neus?
The Beast has offered us a very amazing opportunity to watch this film, Picture a Scientist. I think you got like, can we tell the number of licenses that you got, Nuria? The Beast Institute?
I think Adela knows more, but it's more hundreds.
Whatever. I think it's hundreds or thousands for all the Beast community. Please make sure we use all of them. Call your colleagues, talk with your corridor mates, and just make sure they watch the film. Let the film talk a little bit for us, right? This is an amazing film. The quality of the film is incredible, and just by making finishing all the available licenses for visualization will be, I do believe it will be a step forward into the way of of debate, sensibilization, discussion that it will be worth. So thank you, The Beast, for giving us this opportunity, and let's make the most of these opportunities. So try to convince all your colleagues just to and make sure that they visualize the film.
Thank you, Neves. Just to remember, we have more than 2,000 licenses to watch the film, and we have until the 22nd of March to watch the film. So we have time and resources to spread out the movie. So Federico?
Yeah, so I follow what Neus just said. Just talk to people, all of us, just debate. And we all need to understand that like the opinion of another person is remarkable and that we can learn from another person. That's for me the take-home message. Doesn't matter is male, female, black, white, yellow, whatever. Like there is always something to learn from somebody else because we are all biased, female or male. There is no challenge. Like we can be like the most equalitarian male or female in the world, but we are still biased. So you just need to talk to somebody else because then you can get a different perspective. And as a final message, like I would be positive because I think there is still a lot to fight for, but I also think the young generation are getting better. And as the very last message for women, just watch the movie. And whenever you see something in your previous life that was something closer to harassment, just go and denounce. That should be clear. If there is something wrong, is wrong. As we said before, it's true that there is not always black and white. Somebody there is a gray zone. But if something is black, needs to be clear that it's black. Cannot be no because this man is powerful. This man has a lot of, I want to finish my PhD. No, because this man needs to go out. And I'm done.
Thank you, Federico. Maria?
I'm also optimist. I think the young generations are here and they bring new ways of behaving and ideas. And the situation is very dramatic. It's like with the climate change. Either we react or we will not get these people working in these institutions because they are not going to accept many behaviors that were common in 20 years ago and now. So either we change or they will do other things and we will not have scientists. And this is also a disaster. So I think it's much more than just a question of women. It's a very important situation for all of us. So we need to team up and convince these directors that are too busy with other urgent and important things that they have to listen to the new generations and to the old ones, because we have many things to say and we will all benefit.
Thank you so much, Maria. Well, we have here in the audience the director of BIS, Gabby Silverman. So now, Gabby, you know you have work to do with all the directors of the centers. So thanks all of you. It's clear that we have here a huge community to team up and also to speak up and
to help each other,
Okay, so with this positive message, we conclude this discussion session. Thanks, everyone, and we're here to support you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.